Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Social Housing Roundtable. Lovely to have you all with us today. Very much a special episode today, and one that I'm delighted we've been able to put together. And a huge thanks to all of our speakers who've been able to join us, and I'll come on to those in just a minute. If you are new to the Social Housing Roundtable, a massive, massive welcome. It's great to have you with us. I've been running this forum now for the best part of 4 years. This is episode 184, I believe. Most of the old sessions are recorded, are available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, depending on whether or not you want to listen to audio or watch the videos back. But this forum is growing and growing, and a huge thank you to everyone who's able to join and continue to be a part of what we're doing here. So today, it is a bit of a new one for us, largely because we haven't had the chance in the past to get every member of the, every person who's going for the CIH VP role on the same roundtable. And normally there's only 4 people, never mind 5. So delighted that everyone's been able to make it, even Paul, who I know has jumped off stage to come be with us today. So huge thank you to Paul. What we're going to do is we're going to pass on and do introductions. I'm going to get everyone to come in and introduce themselves. And then we've got a couple of kind of questions that we're going to get set out so people can get a feel for who people are, what they're about, why they're running, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll move it into a more open forum discussion. So what I will just say is a huge thank you before I start, because I want to say a huge thank you to Alerticall and to CMSG for sponsoring this session and the roundtable through this year, because it's the only reason we can keep running. And also day-to-day I work in recruitment. So if you are looking for recruitment support, please reach out. As I say, it's why this is free. So without further ado, I'm going to go through the order in terms of what I did in the graphic, just because that's how my admin team put it together and they're brilliant. So Evie, I'll pass across to yourself first to do your introductions and basically just say hello, who you are, and then we'll go through and then we'll go to questions. So Evie, I'll pass over to you first.
Thanks so much. Morning, everybody. I'm slightly jealous about all these people in these very, very sunny, hot places coming from the east coast of Scotland. So good morning, I'm Evie Copeland, Director of Customer and Communities for Berwickshire Housing Association. We're a small social housing provider in the very east of the Scottish borders.
Thank you very much, Evie. Apologies, I couldn't unmute there. Thank you very much, Evie. Thomas, over to you.
Thanks, Matt, and hello everyone today. So yeah, my name's Thomas Sutton. I'm the service manager for the housing service at Gateshead Council. So where I'm from in the northeast of England, had sort of a head of housing management role. So yeah, enjoy getting to the grips with the day-to-day magic of local government housing management. So yeah, really, really great to be here today.
Thank you very much, Katrina.
Good morning, I'm Katrina Henshaw. I'm on the Tenants panel for Tenants Voice, Scrutiny Panel, Diversity and Editorial panel, and I've been on the panel for about 10 years.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I've lost my graphic. Paul, over to you.
Morning, thanks, Matt. I'm Paul Smith. I'm Managing Director at Foundations. We're the national body for home improvement agencies and disabled facilities grants, working with local authorities and housing associations across the country, mostly around home adaptations and making sure that homes work for people.
Thank you very much. And finally, Honey.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hony Premlal, CEO of Hony Premlal Consultancy, Chair of Eldon Housing, Vice Chair of Somerset Community Land Trust, and Chair of Wishland, and it's great to see you all today.
Thank you very much. So the way this is going to work this morning, I've got a couple of questions, I'd say, for our candidates, so that you guys can all kind of get to hear some of the reasons why they're applying and what they're hoping to get out of the presidency if successful, and then we'll open it up to more questions, etc. During those 2 questions, if you have ideas, thoughts, questions you want to ask, kind of feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll make sure they get asked, but after that it will move into a more kind of open roundtable, so if you want to come on and ask your question, feel free. So firstly, Evie, I'm going over to yourself first, and then we're going to kind of go it one way and then back the other way, as it were. It's all right, I've got this, it's fine. So Evie, why have you decided to put yourself forward for the presidency?
Thanks, Matt. Well, I'm a kid from a council estate. I grew up in a big scheme on the outskirts of Dumfries in the southwest of Scotland. Housing was always part of my lifeblood. It changed my life for many, many reasons. I trained as a journalist and got my first proper job after leaving university in a housing association. And that was brilliant, a great adventure. Working in my hometown was a privilege that I would love to repeat again someday. But ultimately, the thing that held it all together in that role, the roles that followed that, brief dalliance in the civil service as a housing regulator, and latterly at BHA was my CIH membership. And I applied to be the vice president because I felt I could make a difference. I've been a highly engaged volunteer and contributor to CIH for the last 10 years, and felt that on behalf of my fellow members, I could bring something different to the table. And yeah, I just wanted an opportunity to, you know, be that ambassador, be that voice for the membership, regardless of the role that people are doing.
There we are. Sorry, I was on mute. Apologies. I'm running this from one screen today. To those who've not realised, and to our regular listeners, I'm obviously not at home. I'm actually on holiday in Belfast, but I couldn't miss the chance to actually run this today all the same. So I'm trying to do this off one screen, and it's throwing me a little bit of time. So apologies if my tech isn't quite running. But Thomas, bringing you in, same question. What is it that's made you run this year, and what do you? Yeah, I guess why have you applied to be the CIH vice president?
Brilliant, thanks, Matt. Yeah, so the CIH, it means a lot to me. Obviously, from the start of my housing career, I've always been in the CIH, and very early in my housing career, I was part of the Yorkshire and Humberside regional board, as it was then. And throughout my time in my housing career, the CIH has really been the go-to place for like professional development, information on policy, networking, events, and the like. And so, but on all that combined, really gives me the CIH gives me my sense of professional identity. So, I think obviously there's a lot about the professionalisation of the housing sector since some of the horrible recent tragic events that we've had, and I think even prior to that, for me, being part of the CIH meant that it is just a real key part of me being proud to be a housing professional, having a professional body that I can be part of, and to be able to step up into a VP role and presidential role would be just such a huge privilege. And on a personal level, I feel like I could give a lot to the role. I've been the regional lead of the North East group in the CIH over the past 12 months nearly now, and I've given a lot to that, and I feel like I'd be able to give a lot to the vice presidency as well. And I've always been about trying to support the profession during my housing career, and whether it be tutoring people doing their CIH qualifications, you know, trying to sell the housing sector to other people. And I feel like I could really give that energy to the role as a VP and a president as well. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I'm going to Katrina. I think we've still got you on mute.
Sorry, I'm having problems. So yeah, for me, I wanted to make a change. I've had quite a lot of experience myself, good experience and bad experience, and been on quite a lot of different tenants panels. I felt myself that we are heading towards there, but we haven't quite made the change for tenants and to make things better for them. So I wanted to ensure basically that it's actually followed through, rather than it being promised and it not actually being followed through. I've also got experience with diverse backgrounds as well. I've got 2 boys with additional needs, and myself have been through my own experiences, which helped me shape some of the future things.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to bring in Paul.
Yeah, it was quite a last minute decision to run for it actually, and I kind of saw it as an opportunity. I know we're going to talk about kind of campaigns in a minute, but it was kind of the opportunity to kind of speak more broadly about something that I'm kind of really passionate about, which obviously is the next question. But just kind of seeing from, I've been director of foundations for the last 10 years. It was 10 years yesterday, and so I suppose I kind of get to see lots of different local authorities, lots of different housing associations across the country. And I think kind of sometimes from the inside, you kind of tend to think that everybody else is doing things in exactly the same way, when I kind of had the opportunity over the last 10 years in particular to look at a lot. And it is so different from organisation to organisation, area to area. But there is some kind of fantastic good practice out there that it'd be fantastic to spread much further. And equally, there's some kind of really poor practice where it's actually fairly quite simple changes. Sometimes simple change in approach can make a really big difference. So it's the opportunity to talk about some of that. And I think kind of the other thing that I was kind of conscious of is that quite often the kind of housing sector focuses on social housing, which is actually proportionally kind of the smallest tenure now. And I've spent most of my career working in private sector housing, which is where 80% of homes are now. And it was, I suppose, an opportunity to kind of bring that other perspective into what's usually a kind of conversation around social housing, but just kind of remembering that there are another kind of 80% of dwellings across the country with a or equally as important, but sometimes different issues that I wanted to give a voice to as well.
Thank you very much. And finally, Honey.
Hi everyone, good morning. As you know, I'm standing for third time now. When I didn't win last year, I was thinking, do I want to stand this again? So it was a difficult decision when I saw the nomination offer, and I thought, if I'm giving up, and what is the message I'm giving to people like me? That was the reason I said I'll stand again. Let me start saying from my journey. I was born and raised in a small village in India, in Kerala. My mom was a teacher. She's 89 now. My dad was a farmer, and a very simple upbringing I had. But my parents always realized education is important. So all myself and my siblings went to university. I had a master's in biochemistry. I never had a dream to come to UK or London at all. That was not in my wildest dreams. But it happened. I had an arranged marriage. I came to in UK. I couldn't even speak in English. It took me almost 3 years to get my first job. That was a copy typist for a small housing association in Croydon. It's called Eldon Housing. And I was speaking to customers. I was helping them to solve problems where I realized the passion for housing. So I didn't want to be a biochemist. I realized, how can I make people's life better? I never looked back. I became a housing officer. I studied MA Housing Law and Policy while I was bringing 2 daughters in, while I'm studying full-time, or part-time, and working full-time as well. It was a journey. I worked very hard to get to. I became a housing officer, housing manager, become a director and managing director. And I was proud to go back as a board member where I started my housing journey as an assistant 28 years ago. So I'm serving as a chair for the last 3 years, managing a CEO and the entire board. I managed to transform the organization where I started my first job. I did that every organization I worked. I give my full passion, the support needed for the customers and our staff as well. Through my journey, I'm very proud. Today, I want to share a few things with you. I become the Professional of the Year, that's a finalist. I become an Inclusion Champion of the Year, and I become Board Member of the Year. And finally, I become Woman of the Year. So very proud moment last 2 weeks ago at Manchester when I won the Women in Housing Awards. That wasn't just as a piece of paper for me. It's a recognition of my 29 years of hard work and dedication I have given to the sector. So for me, the CIH, I'm a CIH chartered member. I'm also an active member of the London and South East region. For me, the president position is a lifetime achievement award. I don't take that lightly. I'm at that stage in my career. I run a consultancy. I give mentoring and coaching for women and other professionals and helping organizations to be successful. I have my 2 daughters are in a place I can say. I was speaking to Matt earlier. They flew from a nest. My eldest is a civil engineer. She's a sustainability consultant. My youngest daughter is a junior doctor now. I'm at that level, my career. I want to give back to the country, give me everything to Britain. I want to give everything to the sector, give me everything. I came into social housing. When I came from India, I stayed with my in-laws. That was in a council property. So I realized that my daughter is actually living in in a housing association property in Wales as a junior doctor. So I'm really proud to say social housing has given me everything, and I will continue to dedicate my my career and my entire life for social housing. That's why I'm standing here for the third time, and I don't see many people like me in a chair role or CEO role. Whenever I go into a room, I'm the lonely face there, and I want to show that representation matters, because Lara was the only a person of color made to that role. And I want to show that people like me can dream, and that's where I'm standing. And thank you.
Thanks, Honey. I'm going to we'll carry on back in the same order. I know we're going to reverse back through, but I'm going to just make sure we can hear from everybody in the same level of time that we've got today. So Evie, I'm going to come back to you first. So in terms of, obviously, look, we've heard briefly from yourself and why you decided to put yourself forward, but what is it you're looking to achieve from the role? What is it you're looking to, I guess, get from being the CIH president, or to give back, I guess, in the same context?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess touching on Paul's point, this is about more than just social homes. I mean, I think in terms of the campaign, I would be looking to raise funds for Shelter Cymru, Shelter Scotland and Housing Rights in Northern Ireland. This is about access to high quality, independent and impartial advice for anybody regardless of tenure, but also the lobbying of these organisations. But in some respects, there has never been a better time to be looking to build new homes than the last 5 weeks, as it would happen perfectly for a vice presidential campaign. So some of this is around, for me, looking at innovative solutions to build new homes outside of work. I was a founding member and former chair of Midsteeple Quarries, a community benefit society that looked to buy back the High Street in Dumfries in my hometown. 9 buildings were identified, 6 of those we managed to get back into community ownership under my personal leadership, which was a great achievement to see housing for the first time in a generation come back in my town centre, which was brilliant. Alongside that, I also chair one of the formerly rural housing bodies in Scotland, South of Scotland Community Housing. So again, leading support to communities taking back disused buildings or looking to build for the first time. And for me, I think these other options that aren't fully explored as opportunities to deliver new homes, particularly in disused buildings, is something I would really like to focus on, because the housing emergency, certainly in Scotland, and the crisis nationally is not going to solve itself. Social homes are not the only answer for this. And actually, I think in terms of the campaign, that's one part of it. The other critical part for me is about getting out and seeing people. And anytime I'm on any kind of business or personal visit to any other part of the UK and beyond, my eyes are always open for what it means for housing. So, I mean, in January, I was part of one of the GEM Shacks for Centre for Partnership for the GEM programme around homelessness in Scotland that was hosted in Leeds. And that for me was an opportunity to go out and meet some people who are working in housing there, get a real understanding of what the pressure is in that part of the world. Even when we had the first Liverpool conference for CIH and the NatFed partnership, I went out and spent some time with Home Baked in Anfield in Liverpool, which is a community land trust looking to take back ownership of a terrace of houses, which has been on a whole host of adventures since then. But ultimately for me, this is about paying it forward. So I think everybody's got an element of that in what they've said. I was a founding member and former chair of CIH Futures as well. This for me is about opening the door for everybody, regardless of where they come from, regardless of the type of organisation they come from. This is about members, ultimately, and something I've wanted to do for a really, really, really long time.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here, and it's good to hear. I think the passion is very clear, I think, coming through from everyone. Thomas, I'm going to go to yourself, same question about what you would like to, I guess, achieve from the role if you're successful in securing it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I suppose I got a bit of a taste for it last year. So a bit like Honey, I'm back again, if you like, to try and be successful in this election. So obviously I've had a bit of time to think around what I would look to achieve if I was to be successful. I think if you're using the presidency as some sort of platform, some with some sort of stature, I definitely want to encourage the CIH as it will already be doing, but really encourage it to continue to reflect back on the 10-point plan that was originally put together pre-general election. I think there's obviously been a lot of progress made against that 10-point plan when you look at a lot of the recent announcements. I think that's something that I would always be very much advocating for in a vice president or presidential role. I think, but there's a few different dynamics to really what I want to achieve. So, a bit like Evie said there, this really, the role primarily is around what can we do for our members. I think with the professionalisation agenda, we are going to have a lot of people who are going to be undertaking CIH qualifications for the first time. That's probably going to be their first taste of the CIH. And there's going to be a lot there, a lot riding really on how the CIH engages with those people and make sure that it's relevant for not just when they do the qualifications, but thereafter. So I think that's going to be something as a VP president that I would want to try and focus on, around how do we retain members, how do we make sure we build the professional body, build that professional identity. I think that's a particular group, a cohort, if you like, that I would want to focus on. And I think from a campaigning perspective, I think we've got a big issue in society with the explosion really of kids in care, children's services, pressures over the past few years. And I just think that the housing sector, I feel like I want to use the campaign to go on a little bit of a journey collectively as a housing sector, learning best practice around how we support care leavers, care experienced people into their sort of adult lives, into their housing situations, because I think it's a bit of a societal puzzle that we need to solve. And I think there is already a lot of really good practice out there. So I feel like for me, that would be the area I'd want to focus on, around how do we deliver for this particularly vulnerable group of people, and ensuring that we support people, outside of the sort of clinical nature of corporate parenting. So I think that for me is the area where we're about to be successful. It's the area I would look to campaign on and go on a bit of a collective learning journey really around what is it we need to do as housing providers to be able to set ourselves up to support that particular cohort of people better. So that would be something I would want to achieve in my journey.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Katrina, I'll bring you in. Again, a reminder, just what would you like to secure the...
Okay, so for me, these are people's homes, they're not houses, they're people's lives. And I think we need to understand a lot more education-wise of what goes on. I think society in itself is very, very quick to judge, to penalise, and I think there needs to be education around that. There are a lot of groups out there, as Thomas has just touched on, that vulnerable is a massive one, that are missed out constantly. And that is no fault of anybody's. It is about a lack of education on both sides on it. But I'm looking at changing things for the better. And I also want to ensure a fairer process in this happens. Thank
you very, very much indeed. Paul, where are you? You're down there. You moved on my screen. You think you've moved.
I'm still in, Matt. So for me, that's kind of mentioned before, that the whole thing was about the campaign. And I think kind of a fairly simple point that all too often gets overlooked is that in social housing, half of all tenancies are home to somebody with a long-term condition or disability. And yet neither the homes nor the services really reflect that in the vast majority of cases. Because mentioned earlier that it's kind of a great time to be building new houses, but what we tend to get is either extra care or supported housing with showers, grab rails, handrails, alarms everywhere, or we get general needs housing with none of that. And the vast majority of tenants do live in kind of standard general needs housing that has none of that, and is quite often built with walls that can't take a grab rail or handrail up the stairs, or that you can't put a stair lift in for several years. And it's not just kind of about adaptations per se, but actually we're kind of developing homes that are suitable for what's actually the minority of actually kind of fit and healthy people. The majority is actually people with disability, or households with somebody with a disability or health condition. So if the current tenant doesn't need anything, the next one is fairly likely to. And I think unless we start kind of recognising that and working through how we change the housing stock to reflect that, then we're going to be kind of letting down the next generation of tenants and not actually making the most of the new money that's available for new housing. I mean, in terms of adaptations, I see kind of cases where housing associations charge permission for tenants to actually be considered for the adaptation, never mind give them permission for it. And you see so many cases where kind of the cheapest possible white grab rail or whatever's fitted, and it's ripped out, and all that cost is wasted at the next change of tenancy. Whereas I think if you take a more kind of strategic, proactive approach to housing, looking at it, saying that the kind of needs of the people who are going to live in these houses are different to kind of the kind of standard 2.4 household or whatever, then you can start to make a real difference to kind of health and social care as well. So my campaign is all about homes that work and making sure that we design, build, maintain, renovate, develop homes that are going to be suitable for what's actually the majority of tenants, not kind of what that perception is.
Thank you very much, Paul. And finally, Honey.
Hi. My goals are, I would say, in 6 categories. The first one is raising the profile of social housing itself. I know, as Thomas mentioned, recently there is, people are talking about social housing, especially you heard that in House of Commons a few times. I think that's a massive achievement for National Housing Federation and CIH, the work they have done over the years, especially influencing the politicians and the policymakers. I think that is, when my daughters say my work in social housing, she has to explain a number of things to say what she actually does. Because I know most of us in the room, if we was working in the health sector, if it's a nurse, a doctor, you don't have to explain that. I think that's the key priority for me, to raise the profile of social housing nationally, and make that's not just working with the stakeholders. It's also working with the schools and universities, really understanding what social housing stands for. As I said, I lived in social housing. I worked in all my life for social housing, and it does make a massive difference in people's life. As most of us said it's when you have a good quality home, you're more likely to have a good education, you have good health, good employment. So that's the cornerstone. So that's something I will be making that as a keynote speaker and speaking at various events. I'll make that as a big priority. Champion investment in new homes and existing homes. As you can see, the government already made the pledge for 1.1 million homes. Obviously, already affordable housing program also offering money, but need to make it reality is a massive challenge. The sector needs to come together and collaborate, make it happen. So that would be something I will be championing for new development as well as existing homes. With lots of challenges at the moment. The VABS law is coming, building safety and sustainability, net zero, all those challenges, and we need investment. We need much more focused approach. So CIH can play a big role in championing this. Inspire the next generation. It's again, we've got 1 million homes to build. Where do we find the skills? There is not enough skill in the sector. There's a massive skill gap in the housing and construction sector. As a chair of British London, this is something I'm already doing last few years, going to universities, where I did my MBA in London Met University and speaking to the students and talk about the opportunities, about job opportunities in housing and the construction industries. I'm also created a few programs for internship with working with the G15 already. So we need to go out and speak to schools and universities and bring more talents into the sector, because there's so many people are leaving the sector also because of the professionalism. I'm a massive advocate for professionalism. I have a master's in housing law and policy. I'm still studying, and I think it's important but because of the mandatory professionalism, some people are leaving the sector because they don't want to study. That's their choice. But we need to bring more people. We need more professionals coming into the sector. That's something I would be championing. Already I'm doing it. I will be championing more. Another one I would passionate about is the visibility of leadership on diverse background. As when I was the finalist for Inclusion Champion in the Housing Awards, I was really thrilled because this still representation is not reaching the level is needed, whether exec level or board. If you look at the National Housing Federation, the stats still showing is not enough BME representation. I am championing for those groups. Is not the voice not heard, and so I'm proud to say I'm standing for that, and I will be making sure other people like me can dream and actually pursue their skills. I'm actually offering a free mentoring program for women in an exec level to become senior leaders. And next is strengthening CIH. We all mentioned about CIH. I'm a chartered member. I'm passionate about the CIH. Already we are looking at the London region and Southeast region, how we can even go out and increase our membership and also support the CIH team itself. So I think there's a lot of work is happening, especially now. The standards, professionalism standards are coming up. There's a huge opportunity for CIH to really showcase what we can do. So I'll support the CIH team. And finally is the building the bridges, because there's this housing, this health, all are working in isolation. I would like to bring different sectors coming together, collaboration, third sectors, homeless charities. I was a trustee of Citizen Advice. I know the great work they are doing. So I think it's all about bringing everyone together. So I'll be championing. And finally, I will be able to travel up and down the country, because I spoke to all 6 past presidents. One thing all of them mentioned is the challenge of traveling up and down the country when you have a full-time day job, how challenging it is finding the time. As I mentioned, I'm a freelance consultant now. My 2 daughters are working. I am dedicating my career, the rest of the career, for this presidential role. For the next 2 years, if I do win the election, I'll be. I was in Wales last week speaking to professionals. I went to Scotland last year, so I be committed to go all part of UK and listen to the members and understand the challenges and support CIH and the housing community as a whole. And please vote for me. Thank you.
Lots more questions stuff coming through. I want to make sure we've got time for everyone. And I think by the sounds of it, you're going to be about 6 people. So I really wish you the best of luck if you do get it, because I don't know quite where you're going to fix the whole housing space, but it sounds fantastic. So I'm going to go through some of the questions that have come through from the chat. So thank you everyone who's raised one. If you would like to come on and ask a question, feel free to just use the React tool at the bottom of the screen and then click raise hand and we'll absolutely bring you in. Jim, I'll come back to you in a minute because there's a few that I'm going to go through, but I will absolutely come to you. Case Management Solution Group, or CMSG, are the home of React, the UK's #1 case management system for ASB and community safety. We are delighted to have them as one of our key sponsors for Social Housing Roundtable 2025 into 2026. And with the ASB app now fully integrated to the platform, it allows residents to record, monitor and report issues directly to their case office in live time. What's not to love? CMSG are bringing simplicity back to case management, and I cannot recommend them enough and thank them for all of their support through this period and through the rest of the year. Thank you, CMSG, and do please go check them out on social media and on LinkedIn. Thank you. So there's a question that came through from Judith. And Evie, again, I'll start with yourself and just kind of run through. What are you going to ask government to do to make sure tenants are living in safe, healthy homes when we know the housing stock across the country is in a very poor state with enormous difficulties to raise the standards? Has been the question that's come through. I think the challenge is that the role of the CIH president often is to kind of be a face and a vocal point as much as you can and direct towards policy without actually having, unfortunately, an awful lot of influence on policy itself quite often as the president. But I guess in terms of you know, the thought self of what are you going to do, try and, I guess, improve that safe, healthy homes work that you're obviously doing your day-to-day job. How will you use the power of the presidency position to try and influence this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to start with is CIH is the professional body for people who work in housing. So the NatFed, Scottish Federation of Housing Associations, etc., NIFA in Northern Ireland, all those other organisations have the job of holding the government to account. CIH have a role, obviously, in the professionalisation agenda. But, you know, I think there are loads of things that the President can do to make sure that individuals and organisations are using their opportunity to share their experience, their data, help make an informed decision making in terms of what's happening on the ground, but also make sure that there's opportunity for tenants to talk to some of this as well. So I noticed somebody had referenced Kai's report. I hadn't actually seen that before from TPAS England. So really good just in terms of some recommendations for ethnic minority voices in terms of influence and participation. But the role of the President really is to represent members. But I think really for us, this is about making sure there are opportunities for people working in housing to understand their obligations to the people they serve. So, you know, there are many times that you'll be the only voice at the table. Let's make sure you're saying the right thing that's true on behalf of the communities that you're working in. And also for myself, my campaign is absolutely based in this, so that high quality, impartial, free advice is required now more than ever. Organisations have got some really difficult decisions to make just in terms of where their investment goes. The state of housing stock varies house to house, street to street, organisation to organisation. Some of this is about people being absolutely assured of their tenancy rights, but also organisations being held to account when something goes wrong too.
Thank you very much indeed. Thomas, over to you in terms of any points you'd like to raise around the state of the housing stock and safe, healthy homes, and obviously the work that needs to be done in that space.
Yeah, I think it's the $64,000 question. I think particularly working in local authority housing, you know, I see this dilemma playing out pretty much daily around how as organisations we look after our sort of existing stock and bring it up to where it needs to be by 2030 or by 2050. At the same time, as obviously there's a pressure there constantly to be thinking on how we can be developing properties as well. So as a CIH president, obviously has already been alluded to. It's not like you're necessarily going to have the strings of power available, but as I said in one of my previous answers, I think there is a platform there, and I think it's good listening to the candidates, all of us in the round. Our ability to articulate hopefully comes across to the audience as well. Our ability to be able to tell a story, and obviously you can probably tell by what's already been said. There's some particular specialisms we've probably all got. So I think whoever it is who's successful in this role is going to be able to tell quite a good story around the challenges that the sector faces, and making sure that, you know, at whatever table we're at, there is somebody there who's well informed around how these challenges manifest themselves on a daily basis. So obviously there's imminent opportunities to feedback into different consultations, obviously decent home standard consultations and things of that nature, but consultations are not necessarily going to get the nub of it, which is we probably do need more money to invest in our existing stock, as well as the announcements around building en masse new build social housing. So yeah, all I can say from personal point of view is I'll be as vocal about this issue as I possibly can.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I've realised we've got a lot of questions coming through, and time-wise, I'm going to try and kind of go, if everyone could keep their answers about 2 minutes, that would be wonderful. But sorry to do this to Katrina, because I've just thrown that at you. But yeah, on that one, so in terms of that, around that, that question around living in safe, healthy homes and the state of the housing stock in the country at the minute, how will you use your role as president to try and influence some of those changes?
I think a lot of this is about communication. When we've had the tragedy that's basically unfolded and stuff, and my view is it shouldn't actually take a tragedy in the first place for these things to actually be looked at. And with the way that the stock is, in the world. There are ways around getting around that. So it will be more risk assessments, it will be more communication, it will be more views. We could then start looking at councillors coming into meetings with tenants and stuff like that. So it is more robust, the actual action plan for things to happen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Paul, anything you would add or anything you'd like to contribute?
Yeah, I suppose I'm in the fortunate position that in the role I do now in the day job, I do get to speak to government departments and kind of civil servants on a pretty much day-to-day basis. And I think the exciting thing is that over the last 12 months, there's been so much more work behind the scenes than there were probably in the kind of previous 14 years. So I think it's very kind of exciting period of time over the kind of coming months and years as things like the kind of housing strategy comes out, which I think will have a lot of solutions. And I think kind of a key part of it is, as you kind of go through consultations, is to kind of support the things that are in there that you really want to see happen. Because I think sometimes with consultations, there's a tendency for people to think, well, there's something good in there, that'll just happen. But then sometimes there are kind of competing priorities. I think kind of we've seen it with kind of accessibility standards of new homes. The kind of House Builders Federation weren't so keen on it, so it's been kind of held up for a while. So I think it's kind of as things, and I think things are definitely going to come out over the next 12 months. It's kind of supporting the really positive things that could happen to make sure that they do kind of make it onto the statute books.
Thank you very much. And finally, Honey.
Yeah, for me, it shouldn't be. I know we got regulations. The housing regulator brought a lot of new. The C is the new rating. Obviously, that gives a custom voice and compliance, and that part is there. But it shouldn't be a tick box exercise. It shouldn't be just for compliance. It should be, as Katrina said, about listening to customers, really building that relationship, getting that trust with the customers. I think that's fundamental. I know as a chair, at board meeting, we make a decision: should we invest in our current properties for building safety, fire safety, repairs, or should we build new homes? And 99% of the time we say yes, we invest in our current properties. We want to make sure our homes are safe for our customers, and that is a decision every board are taking currently. It's not lightly taken because we have to build new homes as well. People are living in street. This homelessness is getting high and high. So I think what I would say is, President, working with the National Housing Federation, Scottish Federation, organisations like that to work with the federations and influence the government to more investment in current properties. I know there is building safety fund and investment for net zero all coming. I think we need more money to build, make our homes more safe and sustainable, because it's otherwise we won't be able to build new homes. That's something I would take it, with working with different organisations.
Thank you very much. There was a point actually which Alicia had mentioned, but before I bring in James, who said, Matt, it's more of an observation rather than a question, but listening to the candidates, I'm struck that whoever's successful, an awful lot of good stuff from the other candidates has the potential to be lost. In education, the head teacher is always supported by a team of senior management with at least 2 deputies. No one person can be everything to everyone. I'm hoping that, the fact that 5 of you are running this year and the stuff that you can share so collaboratively is in spaces such as this, I think there will be people you can lean on. And it's interesting that the presidency is always, you are elected to be vice president. I think it's always an interesting way that the CIH run it. You get elected to be vice president to learn off the president for a year. You then get your 1 year and then it passes on. And a year isn't much time. So that constant narrative to be close to others who are continuing to run in the journey is absolutely huge. But James, do please come in. We'd love to hear your question before I go to some of the others that are coming up in the chat.
Right, good morning, candidates. Very good luck. Very well presented so far. I would be interested to know what you as candidates feel about the Decent Home Standards, Section 106, and the Golden Threads coming forward. What you think should be happening with those things, the new decent homes. I'd like to know what you see as the top 3 issues at the moment in the sector that need to be dealt with, and how you do that.
Thank you, Jim. We'll tell you what, we'll try and reverse order. Evie, I know it probably keeps you waiting a little bit longer. Apologies, but Honey, I'll come to yourself first. So, yeah, I guess
And views on Aleb's law as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Whether I guess it's the main, what do you think are the three biggest issues in housing, and I guess how you would try and use your presidency role to influence those. So thank you, Jim. Honey, I'll come to you.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, homes should be decent and safe and sustainable for our customers, because it's a number of reasons. If you have a good quality home, you're more likely to have good health, education, and employment. So decent home, the new standards, I think it would be pushing the organisation to invest more money and get those standards right. As I said before, boards are making tough decisions whether to build new homes or invest in existing homes. Yes, there are numerous challenges in the sector. As every organisation are finding financial challenges. I don't know whether you saw in Inside Housing a few days ago, Ellen Peabody, Notting Hill Genesis, many G15 big providers are the surplus, the rating is coming down because of the new investment or new development plan they have they not managed to achieve. So I would say the challenges would be there's lots of regulatory challenges is there for especially above law. How organization going to turn it around within 24 hours? It's going to be a massive challenge. We don't have enough skilled contractors to do the work or skilled staff to do the job. So I think it's the biggest thing I see is the shortage of skills. That's why Choose Housing, Ellie's campaign, I wholeheartedly support. If I win the election, I will be continuing with that journey, because the next 20 years, we do need to campaign that to get more people into the sector. And even the existing people need to be supported. Yes. Secondly, is the qualification. Again, it's a lot of investment is needed to make sure because otherwise they won't be able to operate in certain levels, and that's a massive trick. And also all those building safety, fire safety, all those compliance safety works need to be happening. Again, the lack of funding, lack of resources, financial resources is a massive challenge. So and I know it's all the challenges, but we've got opportunities as well. Currently, the government is listening. Currently there's a focus on social housing. Let's work together as collaborate and make this work, because this collaboration is the key to success. We need to look at private sector, public sector, third sector, all come together and build partnership. And that's that. If I win the election, that's what I will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honey. Paul, your thoughts on the top three issues facing housing and how maybe in your role you could, I guess, influence, or I guess in your role, what would be the three things you'd most like to influence, if you can?
I mean, I think I'll keep it brief for you, Matt. I think, as you kind of said, that the kind of period of time when you get to be vice president and president is relatively brief, and everyone's kind of got a day job on top of that. So I'm kind of really focused on making homes work for people, recognising that 50% of tenancies have something to do with a disability or health condition, and that both the homes and the services that are provided need to recognise that. And it doesn't necessarily have to cost more. It's just kind of spending the money in a different way, working with partners better, working with tenants and residents better to deliver homes and services that meet those needs. And I'll be focused on that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Katrina.
Doing it again. Sorry. For me, it is just basically get the basics met, and then you reduce the impact on the finances. So that will reduce the impact on the damp and mould, the aids and adaptations, etc., because your basic needs are actually being met in a home anyway with it. But with the new standards in place, it will enforce that. But I think a lot of it is generally about communication and how we communicate that and build that bridge between the sectors to make sure that those things are happening.
Thank you very much indeed. Thomas.
Yes, so picking up on something Paul said earlier on around the fact that majority of dwellings now are in private hands, and the private rented sector is bigger than the social rented sector. So for me, the three big challenges interlinked, I guess, are face and facing us that I would want to sort of try and look at, and referring back to the 10-point plan pre-general election as well, where these things were quite fundamentally stated, is around regulation of the private rented sector, renters reform bill. We need to see that on the statute ASAP. I think that's crucial, really, around the fact that years after it was first promised, we're still living in a world where people can be evicted for nothing. Just find it crazy. I think linked into that is the fact decent home standards, both in the social but also implemented in the private rented sector. I think that's going to be crucial around how we drive up standards massively. And I think the other big issue I think we've got, which I would like to see more talk about, is the fact that we do live in a society which does seem to sort of financialise housing. I'd love to get back to a world in which we were like talking about housing as shelter rather than an asset. An asset to be milked rather than something that's actually there to provide shelter. There's definitely been a cultural shift over the past 30-40 years, and I'd like to think bit by bit we can get back to a more sane housing market. Would be the way things I'd like to do. Maybe a bit grandiose for the role of CIH Vice President, but these are things which is how I feel about these things anyway. Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. And Evie.
Thank you. So these challenges, I think number one is affordability, and ultimately for me in my day-to-day, that means rent for tenants. If we've got net zero, if we've got investment in existing homes, if we've got potential new builds on the park as well, organisations are having to look more closely at how much that costs and how they're going to be able to deliver it, whether that's a loan, through joint ventures, through constitutional changes to the organisation, mergers and the like. How does that affect how much tenants are paying for the home that they live in, is number one. Secondly, I think that, just again following up on a lot of the themes that have been said already, but like the togetherness. So even much of this conversation has very much been England centric. House has obviously devolved. It affects different parts of the UK and beyond very, very differently. But Thomas's point there around, how do we bring this back to a kind of habitation standard almost, what's fit for somebody to live in and create home? I mean, here at BHA, our vision is to realise the power of home for everybody who lives in one of our homes. So that's based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But one of our values in that is brilliant basics, and that is very much cemented in doing what we say we'll do. And ultimately, that's the right thing, but it all comes down to how much things are going to cost. And then the last one, I think, is really managing the reality of changing housing management. Public services are massively squeezed. I see somebody's asked a similar question in the comments. How do organisations, manage being the last one standing? We often talk about housing as the fourth emergency service, whether people believe that or not. I know all too well what it's like to be the last person standing when somebody's in absolute crisis, and the housing association or local authority colleagues in housing management are the only people who can intervene, particularly local authority homelessness colleagues. So things look very different even to when I started in housing 15 years ago. How we continue to manage that and support the professionals delivering the services is a really big challenge, I would say.
Thank you very much, Evie. Listen, I'll bring you in just a moment. There's a question which came through from Jamie, which I really wanted to make sure we asked, and then I'm going to come to yourself, because I know there's been a lot of conversation, which I'm sure you're going to allude to when we bring you in. But there's a quick one from Jamie, which I'm just going to give everyone 1 minute on before I bring in Alicia. If collaboration is key to rewriting the narrative of the sector, what plans or ideas are you looking to prioritise during your tenure to create lasting change? Evie, if you're happy, I'll go to yourself first. We'll go back in reverse order. So yeah, if collaboration is key to rewriting the narrative of the sector, what plans or ideas are you looking to prioritise during your tenure to create lasting change? As close to a minute as you're able to, please.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in the CIH governance structure for a long time, and one of my early thoughts was actually, for things to last, they need to be cemented in that governance structure. And an idea I've always had at the back of my head was the president needs the time to be able to enact the change that they want to see. And wouldn't it be great if somebody could be seconded into that role full time for that year to make sure whatever it is they're campaigning for sticks and lasts?
Fantastic. I'll go to Thomas.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout, that, Evie. I think that's really good around how to embed something, and I think that leads on nicely to the thing I would want to focus on, which I alluded to in one of the previous answers, which would be both the collaboration between local authorities and housing providers around how we can provide a much more enhanced sort of pathway for care leavers, care experienced people to access housing and make sure that the appropriate support there. That is not, might roll off the tongue, but that is not necessarily an easy thing to configure across the board. So I think that's the collaborative project that I would want to be looking for as part of any successful presidency.
Thank you, Katrina.
For me, it's about a bridge being formed between the landlords and tenants and society in itself, and that communication taking place, and also fairness and a balance throughout with it.
Thank you. Paul?
There's an existing memorandum of understanding between lots of organisations, including CIH, NHF, Department of Health, MHCLG, amongst others, that we've provided the Secretariat for foundations in the past, and it's kind of withered a little bit over the last few years, but reinvigorating life into that and kind of bringing all those partners together to deliver that joint approach would be a really good outcome, I think, from a vice presidency and presidency.
Wonderful. And Honey?
Yeah, as Evie's, as Katrina said, my starting point is the relationship between tenants and landlords. It's an adult-to-adult relationship, not a parent and child relationship. I heard at the conference the other day, one of the tenants was saying, this is the major problem when tenants doesn't feel like the landlords are, they don't treat that relationship. I think that's the first thing we need to address, building that relationship. They can have the communication about whatever the problem they're facing. They can work together and solve that problem. Secondly is the collaboration with the another sectors. Main one I would say is the health sector. So I'm championing for supported housing at the moment because there's not enough funding. A lot more work we can achieve. We're working with the housing and health service in doing partnership local level and national level, and obviously there are partnership across different organizations, local authorities all need to happen, but there's not enough funding. Local authorities are also struggling, so it need to be a collaborative approach needed across the sector.
Okay, thank you very much. Alicia, I'll bring you in.
It's not necessarily the question that you probably think I'm going to ask, Matt.
Okay.
Mine's around recruitment, really, and a point that I've discovered. I've had a lot of people the last couple of weeks coming in and out because I've had a number of repairs. And the thing that because I do talk to them all, is that many of them, electricians and plumbers and everything, are saying they've got mates who don't want to come into the sector. Now, this is something that I think that it's time for. We focus all the time on the negative stuff. And yes, there's a lot that still needs to be done. But is it not time now for informed tenants like me, providers, an organisation like yours, to actually look at the contribution in the past that social history has made to the health well-being of our communities? I mean, the Addison Act was 106 years ago now, and use that and the good practice that we are seeing. And I do get frustrated that there isn't more said about the good practice in order to better inform our practices in the future.
Evie, would you like to jump on that one first?
Sure, yeah, I think you're bang on, and regardless of whoever wins the election, I think that's something CIH and its partners need to do regardless. And it's a sad state of affairs, particularly with the skills gap and the amount of work that needs done in homes, particularly in areas like where I am at the moment. Access to a supply chain of contractors is really, really difficult. So if you have got a friend who would like to come and work, we need to make sure those entrances into housing, into a trade job, into a net zero and renewable energy job, whatever it is, even, on the front line in terms of housing management, that you can access that, and we talk about the good things. I think we're really good, able to talk about the good sides of, the great things that we get to do. But you're right, there's definitely a lot more to say just in terms of the day-to-day, what people are doing in and out of folks' homes.
Thank you very much. Thomas?
Yeah, definitely. I think it goes without saying around, there's always that constant need for the sector to be sharing best practice. We're not a competitive industry, in a way a dog-eat-dog business world might be, so that creates a space really where we are developing good practice across the range of housing management areas that we should feel comfortable sharing that, and CIH obviously needs to play an active role in providing the forums for people to do so. I think you're right to highlight the recruitment headaches that we face, skills shortages and the like. It's a massive challenge. I think the sector is probably going to have to get even more sort of loud around selling the benefits of working for a social housing provider. Yeah, there will be contractors, trade people who will want to work for themselves as sole traders, because that can sometimes be quite lucrative. But working for a social housing provider would do provide a career of social value. There is job security and our good pensions and the like. So I do think there is something there that where we can be we can sell ourselves a bit better as well around for opportunities for people in those particular roles. But it is with the shortages, with the expected building that needs to take place as well, getting the right resources to preserve our existing stock is just a mammoth challenge.
Thank you, Thomas. Katrina?
I completely agree. Being on the tenant panels and stuff, we hear day in and day out of some of the complaints with contractors and things that they're facing. I think there needs to be more incentives for them. I think they need to be recognised more. You can't get away from subcontractors and contractors, and they're as a big organisation, but then we find that possibly the rules are not flowing throughout. So that needs kind of looking at. There's a lot of gaps and a lot of bridging that needs on all sectors for it to happen, and it is primarily around communication.
Paul, over to you.
Yeah, I remember speaking to a journalist once when kind of a complaint or a bad news story appeared in the press, and I said, well, there's so many thousands of good news stories. Why don't you pick one of them? And he said, good news is no news. And that kind of always stuck with me. So I think in terms of kind of PR, that there is definitely a role for kind of CIH and NatFed working together around a lot of the good stuff that does happen across the sector, and doing that in a coordinated and an effective way, because the kind of news channels are always going to pick up on the things that go wrong. So you have to be a lot more proactive in sharing the things that go right. We've been kind of running a campaign around pushing out some good news stories around home adaptations, but there are so many other good news stories that actually, if you take a kind of coordinated and proactive approach, you can start to turn that narrative around.
Thank you. And finally, Honey.
Yeah, Alicia, that's a great question and observation as well. Whenever I speak to board members, even board members are saying they are worried to be a board member or chair because the reputational damage, especially with the various sad incidents happen in the sector, they're worried how they impact on their professional life and personal life as well. So I can understand the contractors, how they're feeling as well. So obviously we do need to look at case by case and see how we can support those people. I would say, in terms of good news stories, my first year campaign 2 years ago, that was my main campaign, talk about positive stories, because it's as Paul was saying, the journalists are not interested in those positive stories because they like to hear the ITV's news, BBC news, all showing damp and mold sad houses. And we do need it to bring these rich stories. Already I am working with National Housing Federation. They already started this bringing positive stories. They're asking all the housing providers send stories, either videos or stories to them. They're going to do that, and I think you need to come CIH as well. Coming together is a joint approach, and I think there's so many great things are happening in everyone's organisation, and you don't hear that often. I think that's where we need to put our focus as well, talk about those stories, maybe bite-sized videos, that we can see what the changes made, improving the health and well-being, loneliness, education, employment, all that different things we're doing. Amazing work. That's the reason we're here for.
Thank you. I can see in the chat that Evie just pointed out as well, which obviously you'll all be aware of, there's a lot in the Knowledge Hub via CIH as resources for housing practitioners and some practitioner-led materials and some of the regular newsletters as well. If anyone signed up for that, and sometimes organisations save up their good practice for award submissions, but the way that those stories are shared is very important. CIH often do a good practice compendium after events as well. Alert Call return as one of the keynote sponsors for the Social Housing Roundtable in 2025 into 2026, and we're delighted to have them back. Alert Call help as many people as possible feel safe, connected and informed by combining ingenious technology and award-winning human contact. As you can see from this touchscreen I've got with me, Alert Call's digital engagement solution helps social landlords proactively know their customers and properties by putting a portable touchscreen in every home, offering a daily property check through the optional OK Each Day service, plus repairs reporting, tenant surveys and much more. They also provide Beyond Warden Call, an easier, simpler and lower cost wireless warden call solution with video door entry, dispersed telecare and smoke alarms. Alert Call work with over 60 housing providers across the UK to enhance two-way engagement between customers and their landlords. In 2022, Alert Call won the Queen's Award for Enterprise and Innovation, and in 2023, Alert Call won Housing Supplier of the Year. We're delighted to have them back with us throughout the course of this year, and please do go check them out on social media and LinkedIn to find out more. Thank you very much, Alert Call, for sponsoring us again. Now, a couple of questions which had come through. I'm trying to kind of collate questions and put them in because I'm aware a lot of people are having to go because of time. But there's a point that was raised by Colin. So the CIH have fully supported the Stop Social Housing Stigma campaign that he's a committee member of. My question is around professionalisation. Both Grenfell and Awab's laws managers, from chairperson down to general managers, had the highest CIH certification without any obvious outcomes. So just getting a certificate has proven that unless outcomes are pertinent and met, not much is changing. How can candidates look into outcomes, not just certifications, when taking on their role? Evie, would you like to dive in?
I'm not sure you should have started with me with my regulatory background and my desire for assurance at any cost. But I think, Colin, thanks for the question. Qualifications are one thing, competence and care are quite another. I think there are loads of ways of achieving this, just in terms of what CIH can offer. There's obviously the housing professionalism commitment organisations can make. There's the professional standards which organisations can ask of staff to complete either themselves or as a collective to demonstrate how they meet some of those standards. Outcomes would be something you would manage just in terms of one-to-ones, appraisals, that kind of thing. But ultimately, this comes down to the assurance that board members and people around tables in the governance framework are being given. And if that's not effective or is being given in a way that is misleading or untrue, then that is an issue for regulators. Also, for the other part of this, if anybody is a CIH member and is behaving in a way that is misleading or untrue or detrimental to the services being provided for tenants, there's also the Professional Standards Committee that can be informed, where a CIH-led investigation would be done as well, where somebody could be sort of teaching equivalent of struck off as well as a member. So there are other things that we can do, but a lot of this is around organisations' individual approaches, but also personally what you do to make sure you live and breathe what it is we're all trying to do.
Thank you very much, Thomas. What are you, in terms of your views from if you to get the presidency? What can we look at beyond just certification in order to kind of lead and be outcomes led rather than certification led?
Yeah, I think the certificate and the qualification, well, I think is much valued. It is purely just a foundation, really, around making sure everyone's got a certain level of knowledge and pride, I guess, in that professional identity. But it is just a foundation. I just echo a lot what Evie said. I think the CIH actually, I think, is quite ahead of the game on this point around, things like code of ethics, around making sure that, that anyone who's a member of the CIH is adhering to code of conduct, code of ethics, and things of that nature. So I think there's maybe something there about potentially the CIH being more bullish in this area, because I think that there are those mechanisms there, but I don't think there's many people who are being referred to the CIH where they have been found professionally wanting. So maybe there is something there about the CIH being more bullish. But yeah, I think the general, I just echo what Evie said there. I think it's not just about getting the qualifications. There's got to be some general buy-in in your day-to-day housing practice with the right values.
Thank you, Katrina. Sorry.
Hi. I think for me, it is obviously there's certification there, but that doesn't mean that the certification is knowledge necessarily. I am not a person that's got loads of certificates myself because I'm dyslexic. My experience has come from me going, listening, being proactive. So sometimes that actually helps with it. There's a lot of other things as well that I've kind of researched. So there's a Ministry of Housing Ombudsman that nobody's kind of touched on, as well as the Ombudsman itself with it. And obviously in the rulings, there was a Section 29 done. When I kind of looked into some of the rulings around Arabs law, there was a must and should actually put in there. These, just for clarification, putting must and should doesn't necessarily keep people accountable for their actions with things, and that's what I have found out along the way with it. It should be a case of that you should be doing these things to protect the public.
Thank you, Katrina. Paul, over to you.
I think when you look at any case or any decision, you know what the right thing is to do. And sometimes kind of policies, procedures, certification might not lead you to do that thing, but you know what's the right thing to do. And if we've got a culture where people lead with kindness and compassion and empathy, and on the basis that the right thing to do is the right thing to do, then I think that will lead us in a very good direction.
Thank you very much. And Honey, I'll just try and find you on the screen. There we are.
Hi. Yes. Yes. As the rest of the team said about the professional standards and the code of conduct is already there, but it's about CIH can say these things, but it's about each individual organization and their board need to understand what is the mission, what is the purpose for the organization, what's the vision and values, how do we make that is that golden thread all the way from board to frontline staff. I think that's where it need to happen. I think it's every organization need to understand how we can embody a culture of value-driven organization. I know Paul mentioned about kindness. How many organizations talk about kindness in their values? And I think that's really key. That's the foundation, I would say. Yes, I have 3 masters. But that is not what I am. The values I hold. I think that's the person. I think that need to happen in every recruitment, every organization, no matter what jobs you're going to be doing. Making sure the people are hired. Can they deliver on those values? If you get that culture of bringing values, you will have a successful organization. Listening to the voice of the tenants, understanding the people's needs. I think that's the foundation.
Thank you very much. And probably one of the last questions based on answers that we might get a chance for 2, but definitely at least 1. So one of the roles, this came from Jubeen, one of the roles of the CIH VP / president is to represent the membership and act as a bridge between them and the CIH. Can the candidates share whether they are aware of challenges for the membership of anything they plan to work through with the CIH? So, I know you'll all be members of the CIH and have probably tried to, made changes and things yourself. We'll go on reverse order this time. So Honey, starting with yourself. So the challenges you're aware of for members and what they plan to work through as president of the CIH.
That's a great question. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the person who asked that question, because yesterday I had a meeting with the membership partnership manager. It's not just personally me, it's a southeastern London region. We are looking at see how we can support the existing members, also increase the membership. So we will be coming to each and every organization, each region. I'm sure Thomas and other regions will be doing the same across the whole UK. As I think the CIH can play a bigger part in being supporting the members in their professional journey. And I do need, if I become a president, I will be conducting various ways of listening and learning, either face-to-face or through Teams or Zoom, to understand how we can improve, how we can make it more a system, people can use it better. And one of the things I recommended yesterday is there's so many changes are coming daily. I get 10, 20 different emails from saying this policy coming, that policy. So I told CIS, why don't we have a weekly briefing and recorded that can be actually, people can listen when they are doing a estate inspection, they're driving, they can listen so that the updates can be learned. But so obviously this is about listening to the needs of the members and making sure those members' needs are met. Of course, it's a challenging time for everyone because there's so many changes are coming and we need to embrace those changes. So
Thank you.
It's about listening and learning and supporting.
I know they do like the LinkedIn wrap up one, but it'd be interesting to see if there's something more audio based. Paul, I'll come to yourself. So in terms of that relationship, I guess, between members and the CIH, how that could maybe be improved, and what challenges that you've noticed as a member of the CIH maybe exist already.
Well, I think one of the things I've noticed with this process is that most CIH emails seem to go into my spam folder. So that would be an initial thing I think to address. But I think as with all membership organisations, it's been kind of quite a period of change over the last probably come through the pandemic and kind of coming out of it in terms of how you engage with members, whereas kind of in the past there were far more kind of in-person events and kind of getting out and about and kind of seeing people in person. And it's kind of moving more to kind of more online events like this, more online forums. I think it's kind of about getting that balance right, because sometimes an in-person event is far more effective than even your podcast, Matt. So I think it's going to be about getting that balance right and having a range of different formats and routes to meet the different needs and requirements of what's quite a broad group of people, both in terms of role, demographics, where they work. So it's and I think CIH are already on that journey, but continuing that forward.
Wonderful. Katrina.
Hi, for me, so there's 13 regions and over 20 countries with CIH. It is accessibility. I know myself from a few years ago when I first tried to do a CIH course, and me being dyslexic and asking just something as simple as a colour change in paper. It is massive. So if we're not just getting the basic needs met, we've got over 20 countries, we need to look at accessibility.
Wonderful. Thomas.
Yes, so as the regional lead for the North East CIH group, one of me sort of bugbears, if you like, is that I would like all regional groups to sort of have a direct line to the members in their region. And so one of the things over the past few months been trying to get sorted is that, you know, as a regional group, we are able to have a direct line to people, make contact with members in the region, introduce ourselves and make sure people are really aware of how they can get involved with the local group. That is still a bit of a work in progress because of GDPR concerns and the like. So I'm really determined how we can try and break through that particular bureaucratic hurdle, because I think that to me is around, we want to bring life to the CIH and to the regions and make sure all members understand who their local group is. That connectivity is just really important. So that's something that I'm keen to try and work through with the CIH. Whether I get this position or not, that's still something I'm going to be trying to work through, to be honest.
Brilliant. Thank you, Thomas. And finally, Evie.
I think I wear my CIH badge with pride every single day, and I think sometimes it's difficult to see another, and it's difficult sometimes to see the things that, you know, make your reality, and those spaces, just as Paul said and Thomas has touched on as well, the kind of bringing the life to it. You know, there's no better thing than being together with people who understand exactly what you're talking about, you know, have that network of people who you can learn from and share from, just following on Alicia's question earlier on as well. But this is about making this an organisation that exists for its members again, and I think there are times in the past where that has been a bit lost for me, and that's as somebody who's a highly engaged, highly committed volunteer. So, you know, I would want to make sure that there's space for people to really, you know, feel how I felt the first time I joined, and that I feel that kind of benefit of the turning point of being a CIH member and the benefit that can bring to you professionally and personally.
Wonderful. We're going into the last 10 minutes, and I'm very aware that I'm going to give people time to do like that final why vote for me piece. So if you have asked a question and I haven't asked it, I'm really sorry. We tried to get through as many of them as we can. Hopefully you've heard a breadth of thoughts and ideas today that have given you an idea of where we are as also where the applicants are in terms of what they're looking to achieve and why they've applied for the role. I guess the final one, and I'll go through again. We'll start with Evie and we'll go through. I guess the final question is just why vote for you? You know, in the nice, you know, let's in terms of everything that we've been through, what is it that you'd like to say to the people in the room today and those listening back? And there's plenty of people who've been asking for the recordings and things already. Why vote for you? Why you for the CIH Vice President? So Evie, I'll start with you.
That's the cruelest thing I think anybody's done to me for a long time, Matt, so thank you. But, well, I think for me, whoever you choose, you've got a great selection of candidates this year. The fact that there's 5 people who have stuck their head above the parapet and said, I'm prepared to do this is just amazing. Why me? Well, if you're a CIH member and you've read my statement, you know, I've been a CIH member, chartered member for a long time, CIH member for 10 years. For the last 5 years, I've dreamt about doing this. I really believe the work that I've done to date puts me in a perfect position to carry out the role of Vice President and President thereafter. And I think if nothing else, that would be a presidency that was for everybody, building on some of the collaboration we've kicked off here today. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Thomas. Couldn't find you. There we are.
Nice one. Yeah, I'd echo Evie's thoughts there. It's a great set of candidates. So yeah, difficult to point out exactly why me in the sense of everyone's fantastic, but I think, you know, I'm someone who's been an active housing professional for many years, whether it be winning Young National Housing Leader of the Year back a few years ago now, and being involved with the GEM programme, constantly looking to support others develop their housing careers. And then obviously now being the regional lead of the CIH North East. So I'm someone who's been an active housing professional for many years. I feel like I'm at a point in my career where I've got the vantage point of being close enough to the day-to-day operations, but also close enough to sort of like the more strategic outlook to be able to be well placed to represent quite a wide variance of members, and be able to like appreciate everyone's different vantage points. So I think, so yeah, with that in mind, and my experience as well in both the housing association and the local authority sector, I feel like I'd hope you'd be someone who could represent the membership as a whole.
Thank you very much indeed. Katrina.
For me, it's around diversity and accessibility. From my background, whether I wanted to or not, I've learned along the way, use the tools as part of the tenants tourist panel to engage and try and make things better that way with it. And even though I might not have the qualifications, that doesn't mean that you can't be self-taught, and whatever age that is, that you can engage in learning. I think my experiences are quite real, and I'm quite good at implementing and listening to tenants' voices, other people's voices, and other perspective and housing sector perspective on things to close that bridge and that gap. that's needed.
Thank you very, very much. Paul?
Yeah, it's been great to kind of virtually meet everybody this morning. I think we've been able to do this before, but for me, it was all about the campaign from kind of the very start, and being able to recognise that, as kind of set up times, that half of all social tendencies have something to do with the health condition or disability, and yet we don't kind of design homes or deliver services to recognise that. And it was to use the presidency to shine a light on that, and kind of to make a difference going forwards. That's what it's about for me, and what I'd want to do if I was successful in this process.
Thank you. And Honey?
Yeah, it's great. The last an hour and a half, isn't that great listening to all these passionate people. I think that itself it's quite rewarding to be part of this journey. As you know, this is my third time, and I must say it's the final time as well. So if I do not win, I do not want to stand in the way, because I know when I was standing just before, quite a few people of color messaged me and say, "Are you standing? If you're standing, we will not stand." So I don't want to stand in the way of other people, because that's not nice. So this is my final time. Why I'm, as I mentioned before, I've been dedicated my whole career, 30 years in the sector. My last 10 years as board in different volunteering. And even if win or not, I'll continue my passion, my dedication to the sector. The last 2 years, I didn't win. I still continue my commitment to social housing, especially CIH. I'll continue that journey. But if I win, I'll use that platform to raise the voice even higher. That's my promise. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I think everyone here would agree that it's been fantastic to hear from you all today. It's funny that a couple of you have mentioned it's the first time the 5 of you have come together to do one thing, which is bizarre, because this is very much a neutral platform, but it's been lovely to have you all here. What I also just want to say, huge kudos to you all for coming on and doing this. I've done 184 of these. I can do these now. We'll just kind of jump on and crack on. It isn't easy. This isn't easy. But A, putting yourself out there like that, or B, coming on and speaking like this for the best part of an hour and a half. So a huge, huge kudos to you all for that. And a massive thank you to you all for agreeing to come on. The best of luck. I think Honey mentioned, or was it Thomas mentioned, that last year they didn't, you never really find out a breakdown of votes and things like that, which I suppose on one side is great and on the other side might be a shame, depending on how well or how unwell it's maybe gone. But what I will say is there will definitely be people I'm hoping today who will have resonated with each of your individual stories, who will absolutely kind of advocate or lean into a piece that your journey is and you're following on. And I just wish you all the very, very best of luck. But I know the voting closes Friday. So, anyone who is still open to vote or is a CIH member, please get your vote in this week. Obviously, you'll be able to find all the candidates via LinkedIn or ask me, and I can absolutely put you in touch with anybody. But just the best of luck for it, and whoever is successful, the best of luck with a really strong campaign, because that's where the work just begins then, rather than all these pieces now that you're doing. So thank you again for everyone who's been able to join us. Thank you to all the candidates who've come along today, and here's to finding out next week who's been successful, or sometime in the very near future. Thanks again. Thanks for everyone for joining the roundtable, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Catch you later.
Thank you.